Give up 8 goals like the Maple Leafs did against the Panthers, and you're going to want to make some changes to the blue line. The Leafs are doing just that with the call-up of Rasmus Sandin. It is Instant Analysis brought to you by Tylenol Rapid Release Gel Caps. Rapid Release for rapid relief. Let's bring in our Maple Leafs insider, Chris Johnston, to help break this down. The Leafs, Chris, needed some relief on the blue line. Are you surprised, though, that this is the avenue they went to get it?
Not really, to be honest. Since Rasmus Sandin came back from the World Junior Tournament, roughly a week ago in the Czech Republic, I thought that it was inevitable they would call him up. For one, because he played so well there, he's done well in the American Hockey League, but also because they've been without Jake Muzzin, another left shot defenseman with whom I think he was natural to replace. So for me, this was just a matter of time. The timing, I think, of a tough weekend for the Leafs made it a little bit easier, but. He got 6 games at the start of the year, and we'll see now if he's made some improvements in that time and can make an even bigger impact in his second stint in the NHL.
We'll talk about the Muzzin implication in a second, but I want to talk about the 6 games. 4 more games, and that entry-level contract kicks in, essentially burning a year of his restricted free agency. But as you mentioned in a tweet, I don't think if you're the Leafs and you feel like you're a team that can contend for a Stanley Cup, you're worried about that stuff right now, given the state of the blue line, right?
Right. I mean, in the past, when the Leafs were in a different cycle, not in a contention mode, I think that this is something they would have been very mindful of and not been willing to do. It's a little different this time around. I mean, every season when you have a window to potentially contend and win a Stanley Cup is of utmost importance, even more important than the future seasons to come after it. And so I think that, plus the fact that there's no guarantee that it's going to be worse to do Rasmus Sandin's next deal in 2 years rather than 3,
right.
Given that he might put up even better numbers if he has 3 more seasons beyond this one before that second contract. I think both of those factors, basically lead it to the point where they're not afraid to give him the 4 more NHL games this season, those cover games, both in the regular season or playoffs. So I'd say it's very, very likely at this point that he'll get 4 games at some point here before the end of the year and will burn off that first year of the contract. And, it's something the Leafs are comfortable doing. And quite frankly, he might be one of the best 6 defensemen right now in the entire organization, and so it probably makes a lot of sense.
So what does this say about Jake Muzzin's injuries, or anything to read into at least about the severity of his ailment right now?
Not specifically. We don't have any reason to believe he's that close to returning, though, because we haven't yet seen him on skates since he suffered his injury. One thing that plays in the Leafs' favor is next week is their bye week, and in addition to the All-Star game, so they don't actually have that many games coming up here in the next 2 weeks of the calendar, which is, roughly, I think, where we start to maybe look for Jake Muzzin to be working his way towards a return. But, what I do think it says is that there's not, a complete level of satisfaction with the 6 players playing right now. Martin Marincin has jumped in Muzzin's place. I think Cody Ceci struggled a little bit. Obviously the team's been giving up a lot of goals, which isn't entirely on the defense core as a whole. I mean, goaltending and the way the forwards play factor into that as well. But this is a good time, I would imagine, for them to maybe reimagine things, try switching things up, and that will include, Rasmus Sandin in the Leafs' top 6.
Depending on who you ask, people have Rasmus Sandin or Timothy Liljegren as their top-ranked defensive prospect. Do you think Liljegren gets a shot over the course of this season as well?
It's possible. I mean, a lot of that will be contingent on other injuries or perhaps trades that are made. At this point in time, I don't think he's getting called up, but he's knocking on the door. I mean, he's taken steps again now in this AHL season. We've seen him called up a couple times to the Leafs throughout the year. He hasn't yet played an NHL game in the regular season, but I do think it's a matter of time for him as well. I think a lot of it for Liljegren is going to be contingent on what happens to some of the other players in the lineup. But, wouldn't surprise me if we saw him play games this year and certainly next year. Both Sandin and Liljegren are already penciled in to have regular spots on this Leafs blue line.
All right, we'll see if Sandin gets penciled into the Leafs lineup tomorrow when they take on the New Jersey Devils. Chris, thanks so much for this.
Thank you, Faisal.